Welcome to the Parents of High Achieving Students podcast, where we talk about acing tests, boosting GPAs, and getting into the top colleges. Now, here is your host.
Welcome to the Parents of High Achieving Students podcast, where we talk education with parents, students, and educators. I am your host, Tim Prunyi, and today we have a special guest, Kendrick Kumabe, the author of the book, Coaching Young Champions. This book helps teachers connect with their students on a social, emotional level. Now, Kendrick, before we get started, this episode is brought to you by Prep Expert. Prep Expert is leading the way with online SAT and ACT prep, and now offers one-on-one tutoring in over 100 academic subjects, including all of your AP courses and exams. So, Kendrick, what inspired you to write the book, Coaching Young Champions?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Mr. Prunyi. It's an honor to be here. So just to dive right in, what inspired me to write my book was just seeing how the kids were suffering during the pandemic. I was actually fortunate enough to kind of get back in the classroom. I was actually teaching at the district level before the pandemic began. And when it happened, all the support that we could offer the students was passing out lunches during the day because schools were closed down. And I really felt like there was a huge disconnect from teachers and students. So I decided to kind of take a step back from the district level training that I was doing. And I wanted to kind of see what it was like to become a virtual teacher. I knew that coming out of the pandemic, after the schools had been shut down, the kids were going to need a really strong teacher. And most of my background has been in classroom teaching at the elementary school level. And so I decided to take a step back from the district training and actually go back as a fourth grade teacher and immerse myself in this virtual learning. And what I found was there was so much fascinating things that I learned throughout that school year about myself, about my students, about my families. You know, I felt like we had a lens into the lives of students that we never had before with the virtual learning. I was able to see grandmas and grandfathers, moms and dads. I was able to connect with parents throughout the school day in a way in which I had never been able to do before. And so what inspired me to really write this book, I really wanted to encourage and inspire other educators like myself to really do the deep dive that it takes to really build meaningful connections with their students.
Awesome. Now, you talked about some specific strategies that instructors can use, not only for students, but also the parents. I teach a bunch of online courses myself. So what are some things that I can do in my classes to engage the parents, but especially the students as well?
Well, one of the things that I did, especially for engaging parents, is I created a weekly newsletter. So every single week I would reach out to my parents and say, hey, these are the subjects that we're learning. I'm also a big data guy. So I would always talk about what standard that we were studying and then what proportion of my class actually were proficient at that standard, because I really wanted parent buy-in for the things that I was teaching. And I wanted also to empower parents to help their students on the side. So let's say I was teaching main idea one week. On Monday, I would say, okay, greetings parents. We started on Monday with main idea. We had 50% proficiency as a class. And then on Friday, I would send out another letter saying, congratulations parents, we're now at 75% proficiency at the main idea standard. So keeping that open communication open with parents weekly really helped, have that sense of community within my virtual classroom.
Awesome. Yeah, community is so important.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely is. I sometimes in my classes, I'll actually have, especially if the kids are in different places, I'll have them like set up like a Discord server or something like that, or something on social where they can connect to each other outside of the official class time. And I find that way they can get a sense of community, especially if they're really distance learning and one student's in California and another's in New York. I like your newsletter idea. That's, it's good because parents probably read it more now too.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it was really powerful for the students as well, because then it became their newspaper. So it wasn't just me writing to the parents, it was more about them. So I was able to spotlight, we had students of the week. I love doing small groups. I would do small groups of the week. I'm not sure if you actually looked in the middle of the book, but I kind of put some clips as far as what I did on the virtual side of things. I'm a big football guy, and so I also love Kagan. And so basically I use my love of football and then my love of Kagan to build these football teams, if you will. And so I would have students kind of inside of their small groups in individual Google Meets doing classwork themselves, doing hands-on projects. And it was amazing what you can do actually from a virtual standpoint with the students. And so I just really, really enjoy that virtual space. watching those students collaborate within those small groups, doing different projects during the school year as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, you also talk about digging below the surface in your book. What exactly do you mean by that, and how can teachers dig below the surface?
Absolutely. So going back to just the main focus of the book on social and emotional learning,
Yeah.
digging below the surface has to do with really connecting with the students from a sense of compassion. And I say that because I feel like teachers have kind of lost their sense of compassion. They've lost their sense of their why, right? Their purpose.
Yeah.
Why are we in the classroom? And it's almost become more of a mechanical, robotic thing where now I'm just a teacher. I'm going through the motions. I'm grading papers. I'm handling misbehaviors, and I'm being burnt out because I'm just going through the motions, right? So what that looks like is building a stronger connection means that you're really taking the time to get to know your student on an individual level, right? You're really getting to know them, who they are, who their family is, what are their current struggles, and how can you actually assist them with that? So for me, teaching from a lens of compassion means that I'm really, truly invested in my students, their lives, their parents' lives. And so again, when we're having those virtual meetings and I'm able to see mom and I'm able to talk to dad, how you doing today, mom? How you doing today, dad? The students embrace that because not only am I talking about how my students are doing, but they also see that I care about their brothers, their sisters, their mothers, their fathers. And so it creates this culture of, Coach K loves us, right? He really loves us. And the students, the parents, they can feel it. And so that's what I really encourage other teachers to do is take the time to build meaningful relationships from the lens of compassion. Really, truly want to help your students succeed.
Yeah, the lens of compassion is so important. I find a lot of students, they like to bring their pets online. Did you meet any interesting pets?
Absolutely. Dogs, cats, birds, iguanas, you name it.
Iguanas.
Uh-huh.
One time when I was at Nazarene Academy and we were teaching some meat classes, I literally had a student who was on a boat, and their connection was really, really spotty, but you just see them riding the waves. And I'm like, man, I did not get that experience.
Yeah.
Not even once. I mean, I did take an online certificate program from Cornell while I was traveling the world, and I did most of it on the beach in Thailand. But I wasn't on the beach on an actual video call. It was more just typing up assignments in the sun. But that's so cool. Iguana. I've seen dogs, I've seen cats, never an iguana on screen.
Yeah, and also lots of birds, especially in elementary students. Lots of birds. Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if birds are making a comeback as pets.
Possibly. I think they're low maintenance, and so we definitely had a couple of parakeets. We had a parrot, a talking parrot. We had to kind of make sure the microphone was muted because during class time, the parrot would start chirping, and if the student's microphone was on, we would kind of hear that. So definitely had that going on in the background. But it was definitely just a fun time altogether. I mean, for me, just watching the kids light up, I really felt like, after school was shut down, it was just kind of like a dark period for them. And so for me to kind of be the light every single morning, we wake up and we go over the 7 habits of happy kids, and we would sing songs and we would talk about things that we're grateful for, just to start a morning in that space of gratitude and that space of just leadership excellence. It was just amazing. Really, really amazing.
No, gratitude is so important. Now, for those who don't know, can you explain the 7 habits of happy kids?
Absolutely. So Stephen Covey is a world-renowned publisher, and he created a system called the 7 Habits of Happy Kids, which is now implemented in hundreds of thousands of schools around the world. And I'm also a professional consultant for them as well. And so it's basically a leadership program geared towards K through 12 schools, helping students really find that leader within themselves. And so the principles are being proactive, sharpening the saw, putting first things first, thinking win-win, just these 7 principles and it really comes from the 7 habits of effective people. So what happened was there was a principal, she had a school that was struggling. And basically she used the 7 habits of effective people in her school, and she kind of brought it down to an elementary school level. And what happened was that program was so effective in her school that the publisher of that book actually went to her school and was like, wow, what are you doing? And that became like the lighthouse example for the 7 habits of happy kids. And so for me, the first time I actually encountered this curriculum. I was in Miami teaching at a school in Fort Lauderdale. And it
Yeah.
was a school that was about 95% African-American students, 5% Latino. And so it was a really struggling school. But that year, that principal really inspired me, because from day one, when we walked in on pre-planning, her whole mission was 7 Habits of Happy Kids. We're going to implement this, and I'm going to show you how to use this with fidelity. And the growth that I saw in the students and the hope that the program gave the students inspired me to then read the book for myself. And after I read the book for myself, I began to start utilizing those skills and those tools in my own personal life. And the changes that I saw within myself were incredible. So I began to grow as a person and as an educator using those 7 habits. And then from there, it just took off. And every year after that, I always would use that program within my schools, whether I was a teacher, whether I was a AP or behavior interventionist. I would always base my teaching principles on the 7 Habits of Happy Kids.
Oh, that's awesome. So they took the 7 habits for just successful people, right? For adults, and they dialed it back for kids. What are some of the big differences, that the changes that have to be made to apply it to different age groups?
You know what? I think the way that the program is set up is that there's really not a major difference, because as a 7 Habits coach right now, what we do is we actually teach principals to live the principles, and we teach teachers to live the principles. So it's almost like you're modeling for the students what you're doing in your own lives. And that's the beauty of the program, is that it's so immersive that you can take the principles that the kids learn and apply it to your own life and become a better person. So the habits, they pretty much align the same way, but it's almost like we're asking our principals to live these habits. We're asking our teachers to live these habits. And when the principals and the teachers live these habits, then in turn, we have more effective leadership on campus from the students. We have teachers that are more compassionate towards their students. We have teachers that are more patient with their students. They're more willing to build meaningful relationships with their students. So it's almost like a top-down approach.
Oh, that's beautiful. So I like the idea of, like, it's not just a theory, you have to live it. So when you model it, the kids are more likely to follow than just like, here's a handout. Here's a PDF or a printed out worksheet. Like,
yes, absolutely.
You're actually living these habits. That's huge.
Absolutely. And so for like what that would look like in my classroom, for instance. So one of the principles is sharpen the saw, which is basically, you have to take care of yourself first before taking care of others. You have to take care of yourself. So what I would always do sharpening my saw throughout the day, number one, I would model for them that I'm always drinking plenty of water, right? When it comes to
my background's blocking.
Oh, nice, right? When it comes to my diet, I would model for them what good nutrition looks like. So every single day we would have like a lunch break, and during my virtual time, and I would bust out my salad and my fruit, and they're always like, "Coach, you're always eating salad and fruit." Well, yes, that's me sharpening my saw, right?
Nice.
Here's another example. Another principle is think win-win. Everybody can win.
Yeah.
So I would always tell my students, failure is not an option inside a Coach K's class. Meaning that if we're in a team, let's say you're in my group, right?
Yeah.
And I have a person in my group that's struggling. Number one, I want my teammates to lift that struggling person up and show them how to do whatever skill or subject they're struggling with. So it's always everybody can win, think win-win. How can we win together as a group, as a class collectively? How can we all win? So it's just all about modeling. And again, going back to that, it's not just a worksheet program, or it's not just something that we just throw at the kids and say, do. It's something that we actually want to show the kids that we're doing ourselves, so that they actually can see the benefits that we're getting from that. And then they have that buy-in for themselves. And what happens is the kids begin to internalize this now. Not only do they start using those principles inside the classrooms, but they start using them at home. So I start getting emails from parents saying, Coach K, my son or daughter, they're now being more patient with their brother and sister. They're seeking first to understand and then to be understood. They're giving their advice to their older brothers and sisters. So it translates now into the kids now becoming better people overall because of that program. So that's the power of the Franklin Covey Leader in Me.
Oh, that's awesome. So what's next for Kendrick?
Ooh, what's next for Kendrick? That's a great question. I have a lot going on, as you know, brother. But,
right.
The biggest thing that I have going on right now, to be honest with you, Mr. Prunyi, is that I am actually currently an Opportunity 180 Fellow, and I'm looking to open up my own private Christian academy. It's called Champions Global Leadership Academy right here in North Las Vegas. And
Nice.
so we're looking to open that in August of 2023, hopefully. So we're going to be piloting our summer program this summer, 2023. So I'm definitely excited about that.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's one of the biggest projects that I have going on. And I'm also currently finishing up my second book, which is called Restoring Young Champions. And that book is going to be centered around restorative justice practices. And I really want to start kind of empowering administrators and teachers to take a look at how we are disciplining our students, how we're using discipline to build the whole child. Because a lot of public schools right now, they're using discipline as like a punitive way to kind of kick kids out of school. And it's really causing a lot of violence, a lot of disconnect. And so I really want to teach and encourage teachers and administrators how to teach kids to effectively communicate when there's a disagreement, right? And how to kind of restore relationships that have been broken over the years, bullying situations, just all kind of different situations where kids have experienced violence over the past 2 years. I really want to kind of go in and be like, this is a blueprint for you to kind of start a program at your school to now curb some of that violence and get kids having conversations, get kids talking about their feelings and what they're going through. And then how can we work together to mend those relationships?
Nice. That's awesome. So book number 2, I'm excited. Where can people find your first book, and when can they expect to get the second one?
Yes, sir. So the first book is on Amazon.com. If you just go to Amazon and search up Coaching Young Champions, you should see that book pop up. And then the second book should be out midsummer. We're looking to drop that mid-July.
Awesome. Dude, that's great. Looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to see how your program works in North Las Vegas. Now, I know we're approaching the end of our time, but do you have any last minute words to parents, students, or educators before we close out?
Well, first off, I just want to say again, thank you so much for having me on your show. I just want to say to all of my students, please keep pressing forward. I know that times are hard, but please keep pressing forward. You can do it. You can make it. Just stay positive, stay focused. To my parents, please continue to stay supportive, be patient with your students. We're all through a lot. We're all coming out of this pandemic, and some of us are still kind of dealing with that. So just please continue to be patient with your students, be patient with one another. Please continue to spread that love. Please continue to be grateful for the things that you do have. And I am here. If you need me, you can find me on LinkedIn. Please email me, contact me. I'm available to do seminars. I'm available to do trainings. I'm here for my teachers as well. I want to say thank you to my teachers. Thank you to my administrators. You guys are champions in the work that you do. Please continue to pour into the lives of the students. Please continue to teach from a lens of compassion and keep building those meaningful relationships, because the kids, they need it.
Awesome. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, that's a wrap.
Thanks for joining us today. Knowing and doing are 2 different things. So please implement what you've learned today to make great things happen.